Welcome back. In this video, we'll learn how to inject values into a list using the @value annotation in Spring Boot. This is useful when you want to inject a list of values, like a list of strings, integers, or any other types, directly from your application.properties. Alright, let's jump into action. First, we define our fruits list variable, just like I'm doing on my screen. Add the fruits variable in the constructor so that it gets initialized. Now, we need to bind this list with values coming from our application.properties file. Add @value annotation just like we did for the integer and string variables in the previous videos. We'll use the @value annotation in exactly the same way. Now, let's head over to the application.properties file and define our list property. Add the property custom.property.fruits. Next, add the values. The value should be a comma-separated list of strings as shown on my screen. We didn't even specify a separator in the @value annotation. But Spring Boot comes to the rescue and automatically splits the values by a comma. That's right, we just use a comma in the property file, and Spring handles the magic of converting it into a list for us. How cool is that? Now that we've successfully injected the list into our class, let's move forward. It's time to define a REST API that will return this list of fruits we just created. Create a simple GET API that will return the list of fruits as a response. Now, let's go ahead and start the application. Now that the application is up, let's switch over to Postman and hit the API. As you can see on my screen, we received the response with a list of fruits: apple, orange, banana. It worked perfectly. Now you've learned how to inject values into a list using the @value annotation in Spring Boot. So far, we've used the default separator, which is a comma, for splitting the list. But what if you need to use a different separator, like a semicolon or space? Let's dive into how we can change the separator using the @value annotation. Just like we did with the previous list, now let's define another variable called fruits1 in the same way. Alright. Now, let's head over to the application.properties file. Add fruits1 property key. This time, instead of using a comma as a separator, let's use a colon or semicolon. Watch closely as I do it on my screen. Define a REST API for fruits1, similar to the one we created for fruit. Now, without making any extra changes to the @value annotation, let's simply start the application and see what happens. The application is running. Let's switch to Postman and hit the fruits1 API. As you can see on my screen, the fruits1 API returned a single value, the entire string width, as the separator. Spring didn't split the values into a list because it only knows how to split by the default separator, which is a comma. It treated the entire string as one value. Let's make Spring recognize our custom separator for Fruits 1. Watch closely and follow along. Before $, add hash, then curly braces, then single quotes. At the end of the property name, add single quotes, then call the split method, passing our custom separator, like a semicolon, as a parameter inside single quotes. And then close curly bracket. This tells Spring to split the property value based on the separator you specify. Alright. Now that everything is set, let's start the application. Oh, looks like the server didn't start. I realized I forgot to add the single quotes in the split method. Let me quickly fix that by adding single quotes around the separator. And restart the application. The application is up and running. Now, let's hit the Fruits 1 API. As you can see on my screen, we received the correct response. The list of fruits is properly displayed with the custom separator we set earlier. Everything is working perfectly. Just a quick note, currently, we've been using the SPL, Spring Expression Language format in the @value annotation. However, since this is a Spring Boot tutorial and not specifically a SPL tutorial, if you're interested in learning more about SPL and its advanced features, I highly recommend checking out the official Spring documentation online. It's a great resource for exploring everything SPL has to offer. Let's be honest, who wants to remember such complex syntax, right? Don't worry, there's a much simpler and better approach that we'll discuss in a separate video. In today's video, we learned how to inject values into lists using the @value annotation, including using custom separators. I hope you found it useful. But wait, there's more. In the next video, we'll explore how to use application.yaml instead of application.properties for even better configuration management in Spring Boot. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon to stay updated on all our future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.